أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أما بعد, we continue and we are still in the bab of As-Sadaq or Mahr, the gift that the husband gives the wife upon marriage. And we are up to the part where he says, rahimahullah, وَمَتَى تَنَصَفَ الْمَهْرُ وَكَانَ مُعَيَّنًا بَاقِيًا لَمْ تَتَغَيَّرْ قِيمَتُهُ صَارَ بَيْنَهُمَا نِصْفَيْنِ. We are still talking about if the husband specifies a mahr to the wife and they get married, they do the contract, and then they get divorced before they consummate the marriage. They get divorced before they consummate the marriage and before they've been in seclusion. So he said, for example, the mahr is $50,000 and they get married. They've done the contract and everything. And they haven't been in seclusion, they haven't been alone together, whether they consummated the marriage or they didn't. Now, they've always been in public together or with people, or it's been impossible to commit the consummation of marriage, and then they decide for whatever reason to get divorced, then her right is half. Her right is half. So now she gets $25,000. That is her right. And whenever the sadaq is half, and it is the particular item does not change, then in terms of value, then that will be divided into two. He will keep 25,000 if it was 50,000, and she will keep 25,000. When did we do the mut'ah? Not the mut'ah marriage, the mut'ah in terms of the gift. When did we do the mut'ah? The mut'ah is when a person gets the divorce and they didn't specify the mahr. So two people got married. And before the consummation of the marriage, they decided to break up the marriage. But in the marriage contract, they didn't specify how much the mahr is. So this is when the man gives the woman a gift according to his capacity. The one who is wealthier gives her a bigger, more valuable gift. And the one who is poorer gives her according to his capacity. But this is now talking about when the mahr is specified. And this is part of the reason why it's very important not to play around with the mahr, and to make sure it's clear what you intend with the muqaddam and the mu'akhar. Number one, if you say, for example, okay, I really like this girl and I'm willing to put, for example, $100,000. If anything happens in that marriage, you're responsible to pay $100,000 after the consummation of the marriage. And if you get divorced even before you consummate the marriage, then you have to pay $50,000. That's a lot of money. And if you don't pay it, that's a debt on your neck. If you don't pay it, that's a debt on your neck. So you need to be very careful regarding what you're willing to put. You may really love someone, but if you know it's not possible for you to pay that easily, you have to ask yourself, if something goes wrong, and it's a very high likelihood that things will go wrong, are you able to pay that, or do you want that as a debt on your neck? So this is one aspect. The second aspect is the muqaddam and the mu'akhar. That which from the mahr you give up front, and that which you give delayed later on. And this is, again, more of a cultural aspect of splitting up the mahr. Not every culture has this, but the cultures that do. What do you mean by the, in the colloquial Arabic, mut'akhar? What do you mean by it? Do you mean only if we get divorced, or only if it's an obligation for me to pay, but just delayed settlement? Why? Because a lot of the families will look at it in the sense that you don't even have to pay it unless you actually got together and you actually got married and you actually consummated the marriage. But if it is something that you just have to pay over time, then that could very well be something that you have to consider. Even if you get divorced, you still have to pay that because it's from her total mahr. It's not a condition after you get married and then you get divorced. Okay, so you have to be very specific and very careful when it comes to matters of mahr, because even if you get divorced and you haven't consummated the marriage, the woman is still entitled, since you specified, to half of that, as long as there was no seclusion. If there was seclusion, even if you didn't consummate, we're going to speak about that soon, inshallah. وإن زاد زيادة منفصلة, I think there's a problem here in the Arabic too. زيادة منفصلة, الله أعلم. وإن زاد زيادة منفصلة كغنم ولدت فالزيادة لها والغنم بينهما. وإن زاد زيادة متصلة مثل أن سمنت الغنم خيرت بين دفع نصفها زائدا وبين دفع نصف قيمتها يوم العقد. This is not something that's necessarily applicable to a lot of people nowadays, but I'll give some examples of how it is quite similar in some regards, but also for the greater understanding of how the ulama get into a lot of detail regarding certain examples. And this is again a basic book, but for you to know how to judge in between a matter where there's a dispute. If the value of the sadaq increases, and the value of the mahar increases, and that increase is separate from the original item, such as when a sheep gives birth to a baby lamb, the increase belongs to her. The original sheep will be divided between them. If the increase is attached to the original item, such as when a sheep gains weight, she can choose to return half of the larger sheep or to return half of the sheep's value as of the day of the contract. So we know that the mahar or the sadaq can be anything that has value. And most of the time nowadays, people put something specific like a set amount of money or a set weight of gold, etc. But it is very well possible that someone gives something that has value, like a sheep or a camel or a horse or whatever it may be. So let's say a person gave a horse. It's a little bit more valuable, nicer. Let's say someone gave a horse to a woman as a mahar. And that horse, its value increased because it got, for example, pregnant and gave birth. So any increase from the original mahar is for who? The guy or the girl? For the girl, because that's her wealth, and so any increase is for her. The same if the value of that horse went up. So let's say that horse, let's say it's mashallah, it's a nice Arabian horse, and it's worth $5,000. Naam, it's worth $5,000. Then, as she owns it, naam, they took it into a. By the way, how do horses become very valuable? So let's say in terms of thoroughbreds, in terms of thoroughbred horses, okay. Let's say it wins the Melbourne Cup, like Knight's Choice, the horse called Knight's Choice. It won the Melbourne Cup. So this is the biggest race almost in the world, or maybe in the world. The fact that it won, now that value of the horse goes up. Not only of that, but also of its liquid offspring. We can say the things that the horse produces when they want to make babies. Now, so they actually get it and they freeze it and they sell it to other people to try and make pregnant their female horses. So they'll sell a strip, it could go into the hundreds of $1,000s every strip. Now, so this is how they make money. Okay, one of the very famous horses like Fala, won multiple races many times because it had such good genes, because it's always winning, it's fast horse. So everyone's hoping that its offspring produces big prizes and big rewards also. So it goes up in price. Another way is that it wins awards. So especially with the Arabian horses are good for what? Thoroughbreds are good for racing. Arabian horses are good for what? Don't know idea. Looks, Allah yahdik. They're good for endurance, okay? They're good for endurance. So they're not going to go into these Melbourne Cup horse races and win something like that. But they win based on looks, okay? They win based on looks. So they take them to horse shows and the way it prances and its body type and its hooves, etc. And it wins an award. When it wins an award, again, now the price of it goes up and the price of its liquid offspring also goes up. Now they sell it to potential buyers. So let's just say a person gifted his wife or the woman he's done a contract with, he gifted her a horse. That horse is worth $5,000. It went into a competition, it won that competition. Now it's worth $50,000. Now it's worth $50,000. So the increase in value is for who? The man who gave her the present, or the woman who now owns the present? The woman who owns the present. And so she can either go half on the increased price, let's say that 50,000, it's her choice now. Whether to say, you know what, Jazakallah khairan, you gave me this, I made a lot of money off it, I'll give it to you more, or goes back to what he originally gave her, which was the original price. It's up to her. So the lesson is, don't annoy the woman you're about to divorce. Very important.
What about loses value?
If the loses value, same. Same, because it's hers. وإن نقصت, there you go. فإن نقصت فلها, and maybe there's a mistake here in the Arabic, فله الخيار بين أخذ نصفه ناقصا وبين أخذ نصف قيمته يوم العقد. If it decreases, she can choose to take half of the diminished property or half of its value as of the day of the contract. Allah, the correct is that it is if he has the choice. Okay, he has the choice, not her. If it decreases, he can choose to take half of the diminished property because he's the one taking back his right here, or half of the value the day of the contract. So let's say he gave her a horse and it was worth $5,000 at the time that he gave it to her. And now something's happened. It, for example, lost a leg. Okay, so now instead of $5,000, it's worth $25. So now he has the choice whether he wants to take the amount of money that it's worth at the time of its loss or the original price that he paid. He's the one that has the choice at that moment. وَإِن تَلِفَتْ فَلَهُ نِصْفُ قِيمَتِهَا يَوْمَ الْعَقْدِ. And if the item is damaged, let's say he gave her a horse and it was all well and good, and then somehow it died. Somehow it died. If the item is damaged, he is entitled, here means damaged and it's gone, it's lost its purpose. He is entitled to half of its value as of the day of the marriage contract. طيب. This again, it's not very common, but just so we understand the concept. One of the ways that you can sort of get an idea as to where this may be applicable is in places where the woman has a specific value and then the husband buys her something according to that value. So it happens a lot. The woman's mahr, for example, is $50,000. Instead of the guy giving her $50,000, sometimes she'll want a new car. And she'll say, "Khalas, buy me this new car, and that's my mahr." Let's say he bought a car, $50,000, and then by the time they want to get divorced, that car has increased in price. It's gone from $50,000, now it's worth, for example, $80,000. So this rule will apply. This rule will apply. They can either half it, and she has the choice to say, you know what, I'll give you half of what it's worth now, or half of the original price. Okay? And the opposite, if it was to decrease significantly, then he has the choice to say, no, I want the original price that I gave you, the original half, or he can say, I'll take whatever it's worth at this moment. When it comes to these matters, what do you think Islam wants? For people to be petty and to be very stingy when it comes to this regard, or to be generous and to be easygoing? Which of the two do you think Islam wants?
Generous and easy.
Of course, to be generous and easygoing. From both parties. From the man and from the woman. A lot of people, they're happy to implement Islam when it's convenient for them or when they're in a good mood. But when things go against them or things are tough, you see them, they change. And this is wrong. Even in divorce, Allah Azza wa Jal uses words like ihsan, perfection. If you get divorced with goodness, with perfection, in an amazing way. Even in divorce, you're going through problems with someone. Again, you only use good words. You don't lie. You don't slander. You don't expose a person unnecessarily. This is from the trait of the hypocrites, where the Qasim al-Fajr, if he has a dispute with someone, he becomes someone who is not a nice person. He becomes a bad person, uses bad words, etc. We don't want to be that type of individual. Some people, when it comes to divorce, they go very bad. Sometimes the man, he has to pay an amount, he makes it very hard for the woman until she accepts khula. Or sometimes the woman, the man's willing to pay her, but let's say under Australian law, she knows she can get more, so she goes into the court system and says, no, I want even more than what I'm due Islamically. So we don't want either of the two. When you got married, things were good. When you get divorced, let things still be good. And if you're the man, be lenient and be generous. And if you're the woman or the side of the woman, be lenient and generous. And wallah, it's beautiful when you do hear stories where people are like this. Where in times of hardship, they're very easygoing. There's an issue in business, very easygoing. An issue with their friend, very easygoing. We're not saying be oppressed. We're not saying be someone who's weak and downtrodden, but be easy. Be easy, especially when the person's decent, when the person's good. And when you got married to this person, you got married because they were meant to be a decent person. Well, for whatever reason, you can't come to an amicable agreement. Khalas, the relationship needs to break off. Break off, they're still decent people. The majority of people, they're still very decent. Break it off and move on with your life. Now, and some people, they cause themselves depression. They hold on to the most minor or minute of problems and want to get every percentage of their rights, and because of that they have to continue to relive the problem. Akhi, just get rid of the problem. Just get rid of the problem and move on with your life. May Allah bless you with something better and bless her with something better. This next one is a very, very, very important point. وَمَتَى دَخَلَ بِهَا اسْتَقَرَّ الْمَهْرُ وَلَمْ يَسْقُطْ بِشَيْءٍ. Once he consummates the marriage with her, the mahar in sadaq becomes entirely binding upon him and it will never be annulled. Very important. If you said $50,000 and you consummate the marriage, that $50,000 now is an obligation for you to pay her. That $50,000 is now an obligation for you to pay her. Whether it's upfront or she gives you over time, whatever it is, now that's an obligation for you to pay her. And nothing removes that right of hers. Nothing. Unless, because it's her right, unless she gives it up willingly. Unless she, for whatever, says, Habibi, I love you so much, don't worry about the $50,000. Now, along those lines. But besides that, nothing removes that right. She can say, khalas, instead of 50, make it 25 or whatever it is, but that's her right. Now it's an obligation for you to pay. So no one can run away from that, and no one can try and cheat her out of her mahar. Some people, if there's an issue between the spouses, and he owes her the mahar, and now there's a problem between them, he automatically thinks, khalas, I don't have to pay it. No, that's not how khula works. Or even a forced talaq. We're going to get into, inshallah, in its chapter. But once the marriage is consummated, now it's an obligation. Now let's say that woman gives you time. That woman says, even though I know it's my right and it's deserving to be paid right now, but pay it when you can. What does it become on the man? It becomes a debt. Now debts have rules in Islam. Debts have rules in Islam. In terms of the woman, what does now she have to do with that debt that's owed to her? She has to pay zakat. This is something a lot of people don't know. Now, she has, with that man, let's say $50,000. Because that's her wealth now, she has to pay zakat on it. Make sense? Just like if you lend someone money. Now you have $100,000, you lend someone $100,000, and they say, give me 2 years to pay it back, please. That is still considered your wealth. So you have to pay zakat on it every single year. Same thing with that woman now. That woman, she's chosen to keep the mahar with him, and it's a debt on his neck. Now she has to pay, the zakat on that every single year. Okay, this is one aspect. Second, especially important for the man, what is a consequence of a person dying with debt on them?
في صحابي كان عليه داء الرسول قال انه مجبرة قبره او شيء لحد ما يدفع الدين.
No. A person who dies and they have debt on them, they cannot be rewarded. They cannot be rewarded even in the barzakh. Why? Because the barzakh is for a person, the reward in the barzakh is for a person who passed his tests. And because this person has a debt on him, maybe he's good with Allah Azza wa Jal. But has he cleared his issues with the people? He hasn't cleared his issues with the people. So the Prophet ﷺ told us, paraphrasing, that the debt holds a person back from the paradise. The debt holds a person back from the paradise until either that debt is paid off or that person forgives the person that owes him money. Now, and that's why from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is that he would actually ask if anyone is owed money by the person who's passed away. Why? Because if there is, for them to collect and to try and pay it off. Now, especially if someone's good and decent, etc. This was the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And I've seen it, Jazakumullah khairan, some of the people do it today, especially the relatives. They'll ask if anyone is owed money by this person, please come and let us know. Either forgive him, Jazakumullah khairan, thank you very much, or at least come and let us know what is owed to see if we can pay it. Why? Because goodness will be prevented from this person. Because again, in the grave, it is for the one who is the one who has passed his test with Allah Azza wa Jal and with the people. And obviously, if the person doesn't forgive them and doesn't pay their debt back, then on the day of judgment, they take it from their hasanat, or a'yadhan billah, they take the person's sayyi'at. So even though it's not haram to take debt, just be very careful when it comes to this matter. Just be very careful when it comes to this matter.
What about if they don't come forward?
Then it remains between them two. And they either forgive or they get it back on the day of judgment. Thanks for asking questions, not in question time. وإن خلا بها بعد العقد وقال لم أطأها وإن خلا بها بعد العقد وقال لم أطأها وصدقته استقر المهر ووجبت العدة. This is also very important. If he has been in seclusion with her after the contract, yani after the katb kitab, after the nikah, but he says, I did not have intercourse with her, meaning I didn't consummate the marriage, and she confirms his statement, she says, yes, that's correct, we did not consummate the marriage, but he was in seclusion with her. Yani seclusion here means that they were alone in a place and a time long enough where they could have consummated the marriage, whether they did or didn't. Here, he was in seclusion with her. And even though he says, I didn't consummate the marriage, and she says, correct, we did not consummate the marriage, the mahr is still binding on him in full. The mahr is still binding on him in full, and the waiting period is binding on her. And this is according to the fatwa of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. So if a man done a marriage contract and was alone with a woman in a place and time, meaning duration, long enough for them to be able to consummate the marriage, even if they didn't, and he says I didn't, and she says correct, we did not do anything, the fact that they were in seclusion means the mahr is binding in full and the iddah is binding in full, meaning if she's a woman who has her menses, 3 menstrual cycles. Now, this is something that we get asked about a lot when regarding after the nikah, after the katb kitab, after the marriage contract. Should we allow them to be alone together? Islamically speaking, once the marriage contract is done, everything is halal. Correct? Correct. Now, if you get married, and it happens a lot nowadays, if you get married, but the parents don't want you to consummate the marriage until after the girl moves out. So sometimes between the marriage contract and the moving out, it may be months. So they say, listen, we'll do the marriage contract so that your talking, etc. is halal, but we don't want you to move out together. So we don't want you to do anything until you move out together. In that instance, what are the limits that you should set as a wali, as a parent, as a guardian, for that guy and for that girl? You have to put limitations according to what you don't want to happen. So if you don't want them to consummate the marriage before that time, should you allow them to go and come by themselves? That's up to you. Is it halal, yes or no? It's halal. But you're running a risk. You're running a risk. And it's funny when dads think that guys come and ask for their daughter's hand and get married, and they don't have the same testosterone and thoughts and desires that they had when they were getting married. They have all of that, minus, unfortunately, the trustworthiness and the honesty that they had back in the day. So a lot of guys who done the katb kitab and they were promising their father-in-laws, Hajj, no way I'll do anything until I move out. Yani 2.5 weeks later, yani the girl somehow, subhanallah, anyways, if you don't want that to happen, then khalas, you put rules and regulations beforehand. Again, it's not a matter of halal and haram. This is a matter of what do you want to happen or what you don't want to happen. Okay? Yes, it makes the talking halal, then talking on the phone, then messaging, etc. Again, it's up to you. It's up to you. And that's why we don't advise Aslan for there to be this long engagement process and then a long katb kitab process. Khalas, what do you need? Like we mentioned at the beginning, what does a person need to get married to a woman? What does she need to get married to a man? What are the key things? What are the core things? You understand, you're on the same page, you have the same aspirations, you have the same mindset, etc. 6 months talking, 1 year talking, what are you going to learn after 4, 5, 6 months that you weren't going to learn in the first few weeks? What are you going to learn? Yes, again, different scenarios, different situations, how they are with your family, how they are with extended family, maybe. No problem. You want time to ask about him? No problem. But in terms of conversating with someone, what are you going to get after 8, 9 months of knowing them that you couldn't have got after 3, 4 months? So we need to be very careful and very mindful and understand human nature. Now, these people have desires. They have a want for one another. Usually they're young and they've got a lot of hormones. So naturally, a lot of the time they're going to want to consummate the marriage. And a lot of people are falling into this problem. And I know personally of cases, unfortunately, and I know there are many of them, where they've actually consummated the marriage when they weren't meant to according to the parents. And they're too embarrassed, and then they got divorced, and they're too embarrassed to go back and tell the parents that they consummated the marriage. So what happens now, in terms of the parents, again, they didn't do anything haram. But the next time that girl goes to get married, now there's a problem. Why? Because they're going to say to the next surah that comes, our daughter, she was married, she done a katbak there, but they didn't consummate the marriage. But the girl did. So what ends up happening? Oh, big dramas. The guy comes, the next guy comes, they get to know each other, they're going to do the katbak there, and she says secretly, listen, I'm going to tell you something, please, ma tafdahni. Don't expose me. XYZ happened. XYZ happened. So now, either the guy, he has no issue and he continues the marriage, or a lot of the time, they have to go back to the parents and say there's no nasib. There's no, nasib. There's no fate. Khalas, we're going to break it off. It just didn't work out. And now the guy looks like a dud. Why'd you come this whole time and lead my daughter on? And the girl also looks like a dud. If it came from her, I don't want to marry him. Now, why'd you lead the guy on? So now bad reputations, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. So how do you solve that problem? Number one, if you're a guy and you don't want to agree to the condition, don't agree. We spoke about in the condition of marriage, don't be a grub. Don't say to your potential father-in-law, Hajj, la, al-aini wa rasi. No way I'll do anything. La, after we move out, inshallah, only. And then go and do something wrong. Don't do that. Because even if it was halal for you, you're not a man. Okay, you're not a man. If you wanted to do it, go and speak to him from the beginning. Now, number two, if you're a parent or you're a wali, you're a guardian, don't put things in place that you know are going to lead to problems. Don't put things in place that you know are going to lead to problems. If you're happy for things to happen, no problem, you're happy. But don't act on no khalas. Go out, do what you want, go for hours, naam, and Allah khalikum, don't touch hands. You can't be silly. طيب. وإن اختلف الزوجان في الصداق أو قدره فالقول قول من يدعي مهر المثل منهما مع يمينه. If the two spouses, and now we've spoken about, if they get divorced, what is due from her mahar? And if it wasn't specified, and what is due to her? If it was specified, now he says, rahimahullah, if the two spouses disagree about the mahar or its exact amount, they disagree about the mahar or its exact amount, then the accepted claim will be that of the one who claims an amount comparable to the customary mahar for her equals, along with his or her oath. So let's say they go to a judge and they say, khalas, we want to get divorced. I'm telling him $50,000 and he's saying $5,000. And we say, but it was specified. It was specified at the beginning. We said to her, how much was specified? She said 50. Asked the guy how much was specified? He said 5. We say, who is now like the norm? Let's say the norm is 50,000. We go with the woman's word and her oath. She says, Wallahi, he said 50,000. Khalas, we take that because that's the asal. That's the principle, that's the default position, and so we stick to that. We begin with Bab Ishrat an-Nisa, the chapter of proper treatment with women. We'll give the introduction and then we'll continue next week, inshallah. He says, Rahimahullah, وعلى كل واحد من الزوجين معاشرة صاحبه بالمعروف وأداء حقه الواجب إليه من غير مطل ولا إظهار الكراهة لبذله. Subhanallah, how beautiful the Sharia is. Each of the two spouses must accompany their partner in life with fairness and kindness. Each one of them must fulfill the rights of the other without procrastinating and without showing resentment. Yani the man has rights and responsibilities, and the woman has rights and responsibilities. So what's the obligation upon them both? For them to fulfill their rights and responsibilities without procrastination, yani without delay, and without showing that they hate doing it or that they're annoyed in doing it. They have to fulfill their responsibility straight away and without showing resentment or hatred or a problem with it. Some examples. Let's say the man has to buy food for the house and for the clothing for the woman, etc. And she needs, let's say, $500 for that week's shopping. And she says, yeah, we need to get stuff for the house tomorrow. We need to get stuff for the house tomorrow. We need to get stuff for the house tomorrow. It's going to cost me $500. Look, far out, man. It's going to cost me $500. Allahu Akbar, how much you spend. Talking about things that they need. Na'am, you have to pay. And he just continues to delay or shows a problem with it. So he's not fulfilling his responsibilities. For not fulfilling his duties. This is not allowed. This is her haqq. This is her right. It's not yours anymore. You have to give it. Like zakat. That's not your money. That 2.5% is not your money. That's for those who are deserving of zakat. You have to fulfill the obligation as soon as it's due. Your wife needs her to be looked after. You need to fulfill that right. Now, same thing with the rights of the husband. Same thing with the rights of the husband. Just like the husband has rights and responsibilities, the wife has rights and responsibilities. Let's say the husband has a right. Now, he's asking for the obedience of the woman in that which is customarily understood. Again, if the husband has the duty of, or the husband has the right of the obedience of the wife, and he told his wife, I don't want you to go to this place. And he's got a very good reason. I don't want you to go to this place. It's not a matter of Allah throwing a tantrum and fighting and screaming and saying, khalas, go and I don't want to see you for the next 3 days, etc. This is the right of the husband. Just like the woman has rights and the husband needs to fulfill it without delay and without showing that resentment, the same thing with the wife. If there's a right of the husband, then she should fulfill the right of the husband without that delay or resentment. And this is a matter of agreement a lot of the time between the two spouses. Islamically, there's certain things that are set. And then there's just basic communication between a husband and a wife about what they want. And if you have a good engagement period where this is already established, you usually won't have a problem later on, inshallah. Where do a lot of people have a problem? When the engagement period was very bad. They either got married too quickly or they didn't ask the right questions. Instead of asking what her outlook is on life and what she wants to have with children and what she wants to do with work, etc., he's sitting there asking, what's your favorite color? Do you watch anime? Sorry, do you watch anime? Like Brother Jackson, ask that later. Now ask her the important questions, things that are going to make or break your marriage. Things that are going to make or break your marriage. If you do that from the beginning, she's a good girl from a good family, and her mindset is the same as your mindset, and you've made it clear, this is what I expect in a husband, and this is what I expect from a wife, and this is how I expect to be as a husband. And she tells you what she's looking forward to seeing from her husband, etc., etc., etc. This now, alhamdulillah, you've set off well. Inshallah, the journey will be well. And it becomes very easy in the future, the majority of the time. But when again, they don't ask the right questions, then they get shocked. What do you mean? I can't get out until 12 o'clock in the morning with my friends. What do you mean you have a problem if I go fishing? What do you mean you want, mashallah, $3,000 a week for shopping? Again, basic things, I'm exaggerating, obviously, but problems occur because of this. So I make it very clear from the beginning. Have good communication. What do you want? And then there comes that understanding between you both. That basic understanding, that basic principle of loving for your brother what you love for yourself. Treat others how you want to be treated. What would you want for your sister? What would you want for your daughter? Treat your wife the same. And for the woman, how would you want for your son to be treated? Treat your husband. Now, don't be a person who is like sick in the head. Okay, sick in the head in the sense that they will treat their wife a certain way that if their daughter got married and their husband treated them like that, he would bury the husband alive. He would bury him alive. Like he would look at him in the eyes as he's suffocating. Naam, he'll just keep a little bit in the ground just so he can see his eyes, just to see the punishment and the suffering that he goes through. A little bit sadistic, but you get the point. Naam, a bit stressed out today. Don't annoy me, please. Naam, or again for the wife, that if she was to see her son get married and her daughter-in-law do that, she would tell her son, divorce him. But she does worse to her husband. We don't want to be hypocrites in that regard. Very simple. وعاشرون بالمعروف. Live with them in goodness. Treat them with goodness. And the Sharia left this very broad. Very broad. Now, little things that you can do to better the marriage. So many advices the Prophet ﷺ gave you. Like getting gifts. Now, using good words. It's not hard. It's not hard at all. You know, one of the times that you're allowed to lie is to your wife. Not for your benefit, for her benefit. Don't go get married to a second wife. Where were you? I was fishing. No, that's not what you, not like that. For her benefit. For example, you tell her, babe, wallah, you are the most beautiful woman in the world. She's going to know that you're the biggest liar on the face of the earth. But she's not going to care. She's going to appreciate it. Same thing with the food. You eat and just say, Allahu Akbar. She's going to do, what? Is this from Jannah? Just say something like that. She's going to know that you're a liar. She's going to know it's the basic food that you've complained about for the past 20 years. But she's going to appreciate it because that's how Allah created the woman. Now, simple things like a present. I mean, buy her a present. Put your hand up. I asked this question in my class yesterday and there was a big failure. Hand up if you bought your wife a present in the last month. So we have one person. Who else? Two? Anyone else over here? Two brothers over there. Of course, Bilal did. Of course. All right. So that's it. Only 4 people, haram. Out of all of these people. Only 4 people bought their wives presents. SubhanAllah. Yesterday, exact same number 4. Naam. I don't know what it is about this. 4. It's not good. Okay, it's not good. Sometimes even something small. Wallah, cake, perfume, flowers, naam, and a coffee. You're on your way home, you want to get coffee for yourself, you buy her a coffee. It's $3.50. She doesn't care about the $3.50 or if it was $350 or $3,500. Unless she's from Greenacre, that's a different story. Generally speaking, she doesn't care. What does she care about? That you thought of her. That's all she cares about. She knows when you walked in with that coffee or that milkshake, whatever it was, that you thought of her at that time. When you bought that perfume, you thought of her. That's what she cares about. Now, that's what she wants. To know that you're thinking about her. So little things that the Sharia told you to do and left abroad for you, whatever is good, Habibi, do it. Do it. It's going to, inshallah Azza wa Jal, lead to a better marriage. In all regards. It could be in what you buy her. It could be in the nice words that you say, as we mentioned. It could be in taking her on a holiday. It could be in doing fun things with her. Intimacy, that's later on, inshallah. So many things that you do, and inshallah you have a good marriage. But when all these little things are taken away, then you have a lot of problems. And the Sharia, again, it's so beautiful that it promotes these things and it makes it a ibadah. When you do these things with the intention of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are getting rewarded by Allah Azza wa Jal. And what's better? You have the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal, and after that, alhamdulillah, you have happiness at home. What's more beautiful than that? Now, you've heard the saying, happy wife, happy life. True? Lie. Fabrication. Da'if. Na'am, mawdu'. This is not true. Okay? And this is not true. But happy marriage, happy life. Na'am, generally speaking. Happy marriage is not just about pleasing, and then haram, you become oppressed and under the thumb and you can't do anything. No. Okay? But if a good marriage, a healthy marriage, it eases a lot of things in your life. But you can imagine a husband stressed at work, he comes home, he's got problems at home, it's not going to be healthy. Okay? But he's got a good work life, he's got a good personal life, he's got a good time with his own alone time with himself, and he's good at home, he's good with his children. This is when a person's happy. Okay? So work on that. Do what Allah Azza told you to do, and inshallah Azza wa Jal, you find a lot of goodness. Inshallah, we'll continue next week with the specific rights of the husband and the wife. هذا والله أعلم. صلى الله عليه وسلم محمد وعلى آله محمد صحبه أجمعين.